Good morning, Doug. How's it going this morning?
Doing very well. Thanks for having me on.
Well, I appreciate Doug Wardlow's time this morning. Doug Wardlow is the Republican-endorsed candidate for Attorney General for the state of Minnesota. And, Doug, we welcome you to KWNO this morning, and I know you're down in this neck of the woods in the Winona area campaigning this week. And how's the campaign been going so far for you?
It's going very well. Going all over the state, around 300 campaign stops around the state so far. And just getting the message out and that we need an Attorney General who's going to focus on the rule of law, enforcing our laws, and take the politics out of that office.
Well, fair enough. We're talking to Doug Wardlow this morning. If you want to find out where Doug stands on all the issues and about his campaign and his background, you can go online to his official website, DougWardlowAG.com, and Wardlow is spelled with a W at the end. Well, Doug, first of all, just tell our listeners, if they're not acquainted with what the Attorney General of Minnesota does, what is kind of the job description as you see it?
Absolutely. So the Attorney General, it's a really important office, the second most important office right below the governor. And the Attorney General represents the state in all enforcement proceedings for all the different rules and regulations that all the agencies put out. The Attorney General is the top law enforcement official in the state. The Attorney General's office is supposed to have a very robust criminal law operation to support our county attorneys to make sure that they have the resources that they need to put criminals behind bars and keep our communities safe. And the Attorney General also prosecutes welfare fraud and healthcare fraud, which is very important, and does a whole host of other things as well.
So basically, for as much mischief as people can get into, that job description kind of has to cover everything. It's a little bit of everything.
Yeah, it really does. It really does. It's basically the state's lawyer, representing the state in a number of different areas.
Yeah, and you do have an attorney background. Am I correct in that?
Yep, that's right. Went to Georgetown Law School and been practicing law for about 14 years now. I started off clerking for Justice G. Barry Anderson on the Minnesota Supreme Court, and I've done everything from business litigation to international trade litigation, working for the guy who's now Donald Trump's U.S. Trade Representative, Bob Lighthizer, and constitutional law most recently.
Excellent. We're talking this morning on KWNO, AM 1230 and FM 98.7 with Doug Wardlow, who's the Republican-endorsed candidate for Attorney General of Minnesota. And Doug will be facing a couple of primary challengers. August 14th, we really encourage people to go out there and vote in the primary. It's not just the general election in November that you think about that's a big deal. It is important to take these primaries very seriously. And Doug, what do you think as the Republican candidate, and you're hoping so on the November ballot against a Democratic rival at that point, what do you consider like the top three issues facing the future of Minnesota after the election?
Well, I think the number one issue that the Attorney General needs to address, and what I will address as Attorney General, is just the regulatory state. Job creators, farmers, individuals are burdened too much in Minnesota by regulations. We have over 100,000 different rules and regulations that are put out by our 102 agencies and boards and commissions, and these are the rules that largely govern how everyone lives and runs their business, and they're promulgated by not our elected representatives but unelected bureaucrats. And that's gotten a bit out of control, and it's burdensome for folks. So the Attorney General, representing state agencies, should be counseling the agencies to back off when the regulations get too burdensome and are unconstitutional or illegal, and I'm certainly going to do that. So lifting the burden of regulations off of businesses, farmers, and individuals. And then in addition to that, we need to rebuild the criminal law division of the office. So the Democrats have had this office for quite some time, and they have basically eviscerated the criminal law division of the office. Not much of it remains. And that leaves our county attorneys, especially in greater Minnesota, without the support that they need to keep our communities safe. And we also need to provide leadership on important statewide criminal issues, such as human trafficking, a big problem in Minnesota. Well, that's going to be a high priority. And then the opioid epidemic as well. And then in addition to that, we need to focus on prosecuting welfare fraud. We have a significant problem in our state with child care subsidy payment fraud. In particular, daycare centers in the Somali community have been set up that have been defrauding our state government to the tune of tens of millions of dollars a year, and some of that money is ending up in the hands of terrorists overseas. So we have to stop that. So prosecuting welfare fraud is going to be a very high priority as well.
All right, well, we're talking this morning on KWNO AM 1230, FM 98.7 with Doug Wardlow, the Republican-endorsed candidate for Attorney General of Minnesota. And he'll be in the primary August 14th against a pair of challengers. And then he hopes in the general election in November against a Democratic opponent. And Doug, what would you say about the immigration issue? I know that's a big national thing, but it also affects all the states, including Minnesota. Where do you stand on that as far as the policy goes?
Absolutely. I think it's very important that we enforce our immigration laws. The leading Democrat opponent, Keith Ellison, he actually has been seen wearing T-shirts that says that he does not believe in borders, and he has said that national borders create an injustice. So he doesn't believe in borders, and we can't have somebody that doesn't believe in borders as the top law enforcement official in the state. Borders are important. That's what defines the country, and we need to make sure that we're keeping out illegal immigrants, that especially folks that are criminals. And I would work hard to make sure that we don't have sanctuary cities or sanctuary county policies in our state, and stand up and enforce our laws.
Well, fair enough. Well, Doug, I really appreciate your time this morning. Again, Doug's website, and Doug is the Republican-endorsed candidate for Attorney General of the state of Minnesota. His website is DougWardlowAG.com. You can find out all about more about Doug's background and the issues that he thinks are important as running for Attorney General of our great state of Minnesota. Doug, we really appreciate your time this morning on KWNO.
Well, thank you so much, Greg.
Yep, we appreciate your time and have a great campaign. Thanks.